We're going to do things a bit different this time. First of all, we're not going to sit. Second, I'm going to speak very loud so everyone will hear. And third, I'm going to start with telling you about a near-death experience I had almost 20 years ago. Before that, I'm Lenchner. I'm the CEO of Bright Data. And together with me in a few minutes on stage, Dr. Sara Kuburic will join. Now, while I'm talking about my near-death experience, and you'll understand why I'm doing that in a few minutes, I want you to think about your own. That thing that might happen to you in the past, that every time you're telling that story, you get the goosebumps. To me, it all started in 2009 when I went to fulfill my childhood dream, which is surfing the east coast of Australia as an avid surfer for many years. And I bought a camper van, and I drove through the Australian coast, and I surfed in every spot I could find until I got to the Gold Coast, and I kind of stuck there. Sorry. And I kind of stuck there for a few good weeks. And one day I misread the ocean, and I went into a surfing session, and the waves were way too high for me. And after like 30 minutes of surfing, I realized I made a mistake, and a huge set of huge waves just came in my way, pounding me over and over again until it broke my leash, took away my board, and I was just left out there in the ocean. And I started swimming to the beach just to, try to get there safely. And it felt like eternity. And I swam and I swam, and I left all of the energy in my body. And I remember that experience that I felt completely helpless, nothing I can do about it. I felt that I have no energy left in my body. And the worst experience I had is kind of even an acceptance that I might going to take the last breath in my life. And while I swam to just take that last breath, in the corner of my eye, I saw my board all of a sudden. So I gave it a few less strokes, and I was able to get to the board, and I drifted to the beach, and I survived. And this still gives me the goosebumps when I'm telling it almost 20 years after. But let's park that fun story for a second and get starting to talk about robots. So to know the world, robots need to see the world, and to operate in the world, they need to understand it. And that's actually a solved problem, if you think about it, because seeing the world, basically what we're doing right now, is becoming easier every day. I'm being recorded talking to you. This will be live in the internet in a few hours' time, and this is public information, public content, visual content, that robots can train on. If they want to walk in an event in Paris in 2 years from now, they can get this data. And this data is available for everyone. And many of the people here are already doing that and training the robots on publicly available information. As the data provider for most of the robotics companies at Bright Data, the visual data provider, talking about videos, 3D imagery, images, everything that has pixels in it, this is growth we haven't seen in the entire lifetime of the company. We're talking about thousands and thousands of petabytes of visual data being collected from the open web and distributed to many of the companies that are presenting here in the Machina event. So with this data, robots can, as you know, understand spatial awareness really well. They can grasp depth and distance to make sure they're walking here and not bouncing into anyone. They can understand which product they need to choose if this is the test they were given. And they can experience dexterity in a very accurate manner. And a lot more than that. The thing is that in a few years' time, maybe less than that, they will be all around us. They will live with us. They will work with us. They will serve us 24/7. And they will also absorb a lot of new context that they couldn't train on. How can you train a robot on everything that is happening in the world if the world keeps on changing? Think of two humanoids going out from the same factory in the same batch, trained on the same data, grounded on the same data. One is being shipped here to Paris to serve a family in a Paris home. The other one is being shipped to Minnesota to an elderly house to help the staff there. there's a reunion of these two humanoids after a year, how they will react to the same scenario, how they will react to different scenarios if the context they absorbed over this year is completely different. We can actually imagine how this will be or how frustrating it can get, because we're working with robots all day long, right? We're working with these virtual AI agents all day long, every day. And you know the feeling that once you started working with them, it's like magic. But actually, after a while, when you have mutual history together, working, you and your agent, and you're adding more and more context over time to the agent, and you're giving it more and more tasks, then it's starting to lose focus sometimes on simple tasks that a week ago it was perfectly fine with. And it's starting to drift sometimes, and you're experiencing what's called context rot. But this is all virtual. What will happen with these AI machines will have arms and legs, and they will live with us in our homes. When I started thinking about that, I thought that there might be a solution to it from the data side of things, which we're experts in. But I couldn't fully realize how these humanoids are going to experience the world on the human level. And the only person I had in my mind to ask is an expert in what we call lived experiences. And I called my dear friend Sara, and the first conversation was both funny, fun, and absolutely terrifying. And we kept talking about that, and I told her that we need to do it on stage. So everyone, please welcome Dr. Sara Kuburic.
Ooh. Hello. This is really fun as an existentialist to be at an AI conference. So, a lot of people come to me concerned about the progression of AI, because if it can do a lot of the things we can do, such as neural processing and adapt to context and much more, what makes us uniquely human? Are we at some kind of risk? And what I find fascinating is that currently the conversation has done two things. One is that we have humanized AI really rapidly, and even the way we talk about it has become human in its essence, and at the same time we have dehumanized humans. What I mean by that, we keep talking about the human function of stimuli and response, amazing, what is the function of a human, what is the brain of the human, and we're kind of forgetting about the mind, the essence, the spirit of the human, which does differentiate us just a little bit from the current progression of AI. I love Or's story. He jumped on a Zoom call and was like, let me tell you about a time I almost died. I was like, cool, okay. And what I loved about it is because let's pretend that there is a humanoid in the ocean and there is Or in the ocean. Both are experiencing the same context. That's what we would want to say. But the reality is that they are both in the same context. They're not experiencing the same context. And I think that that's a really important distinction. I think we have become a little sloppy with the vocabulary that we have used, which has then confused the field and has also alarmed a lot of individuals. Why do we do this? There is nothing scarier for the human mind than the unknown. This is why we fill in the blanks a lot about a lot of things, and what we do is we often attribute human characteristics and behaviors to gods, to objects, sometimes to dogs. And we do these things because it helps us deal with the unknown. And we have now essentially done the same thing with AI. So what do I mean when I say this? So language that implies things that aren't actually there. Okay. AI understands, knows, believes something when it's pattern matching on tokens. It decides when it's producing probabilistic likely outcomes. That was a mouthful. Now we get into the fun ones. AI hallucinates, but it actually generates plausibly sounding but inaccurate text with no perceptual experience to distort. AI can't smell, hear, taste, see, or feel things. Therefore, it can't actually hallucinate in the way that we have used this word in psychology and psychiatry. It gets confused. when it actually just produces incoherent outputs, not a mental state. It tries to do something, but there's no effort or intention. It refuses. I love it when he says, no, Sarah, I can't do that for you. It generates a token sequence that declines. It's not an act of will. And it lies. It produces inaccurate outputs without knowing that they're false. So is it a lie if it doesn't know that it's false? And lastly, I like it when AI apologizes to me. But it's not an apology. The word appears in output, but there's no remorse. These are really important distinctions. It's like looking at a picture of a fire. It might be beautiful, it might be accurate, but it will never burn you. Therefore, it is not inherently fire. So AI can know about things, but it can't actually experience things. And I think that this is what makes us irreplaceable as human beings. I think it's interesting that AI can produce the word grief, or it can process and learn about grief, but it cannot grieve. It can look at me and go, she's on stage, here are her mannerisms, here's her voice pattern, here's what she's saying, and yet it does not know what it's like to be me on this stage. AI can know about things, but it can't experience things. And the one big distinction is the lived experience involves the felt sense of being in your body, in time, in relationship. I don't know if you've ever experienced walking into a room and knowing something was wrong with zero proof that something was wrong. And then you'll find out something was wrong. I think this is really incredibly important. And why it's important is that we need to understand we are much more than just biology. So I'm going to teach you about phenomenology, something that philosophers have played with for a really long time. It's a study of structures of consciousness as experienced from the first-person point of view. So instead of saying, what has happened to this person, it's saying, what is it like to be this person? Instead of asking the question of what causes us to see the color red, which by the way is neuroscience, it's saying what is the nature of experiencing the color red? That's phenomenology. I love phenomenology because it's inherently human, and it's not just about sharing information. I think phenomenology teaches us that change is possible with encounter, but change is not experience. What I mean by this is that a rock can be changed by water. It can change its shape because of the water pressure, but it doesn't mean the rock has actually experienced the water. These are two very different processes. Merleau-Ponty, a famous French philosopher, talked about embodiment and the fact that it's not just mental. The human experience is not just mental, it is also physical. And that's very different than just having sensors. It is very different to know what fear is versus to experience fear being in the ocean. I also think it's really important to understand that you can have a flight simulator show you what turbulence is like, but the pilot's not going to be scared because the experience is absent. So let's briefly talk about 4 existential givens. This is according to Irvin Yalom, who is an existential psychiatrist, and he talks about these 4 things making humans different, and without experiencing these things, there is no human experience. So one of them is death, the tension between the wish to continue existing and the fact that we're one day not going to exist. The freedom, the fact that there is so much freedom in this world to shape who we are in our experiences, and it's up to us to figure out what those are going to be. Existential isolation, the fact that no matter how deeply someone wants to get to know you, your spouse, your friend, they're never going to fully understand what it's like to be you, and that's incredibly isolating. And meaninglessness, the fact that this world is arbitrary and potentially absurd, and that it's our job to find meaning within it. The argument is that without AI having to experience these things, they're going to show up in the world a lot different. Your nervous system is not just impacted by the world, it also has stakes in it. And that's the difference. The machine is exempt from all four, as I said, and not because it transcends them, but because it was never inside the human experience to begin with. The absence is not neutral, it is the fundamental difference. So the process is not enough. And I think it's important to know that if it cannot be in it, what impact can it have within it? I think that AI can be incredibly useful without trying to be human. I think that the danger is not that it's going to replace us, but that the humans are going to forget what makes them irreplaceable. I think that the speed and the pattern recognition is not the problem. The problem is when we forget that the human capacity is more than that. It's about suffering, it's about love, it's about meaning something to someone else. And I think that we can live alongside AI as long as we're very clear-eyed about what the distinction is. So, if AI can't experience, what can it do?
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. So the team at Bright Data has been working in the last few months on a very unique solution, future-looking, not as a way to create experiences in robots, to Sarah's point, but in a way to keep the robots as close as possible to knowing like a person. And we've taken a lot of the public information that we've been collecting over so many years and processed that into a visual database, a very unique visual database that you can just prompt and search. In these examples, a person is looking for scenes, for visual scenes of someone washing the dishes. And thanks to this new product that we're about to launch, the Video Search Index and Video Search API, you can actually find the scenes that you need in order to get that machine, the brain of the machine that you're building, closer to knowing what it is to become a human, probably without actually having those human experiences. And you can get that with the exact timestamp of the scene that you need, perfectly aligned with the prompt that you've added, download it through our Bright Data infrastructure. And I believe that this will be a crucial part of the reinforcement learning processes that these humanoids will need to go through every single time that they're getting new context they haven't been trained on. When I'm showing that to lots of people, everyone are saying, yeah, okay, it's like the Matrix when Neo got plugged into the machine and all of a sudden he knows Kung Fu. So we switched Neo with this humanoid, but this is exactly what we're talking about. Think about a humanoid that needs to do something it wasn't trained on. He will be immediately connected to a fast connection to the internet, prompt the visual search index, get the data that he needs, the visual data that he needs, and after a minute, he will know how to react to this new scenario he wasn't trained on. Finishing with that, I have a question for Sarah, and then we're done. Do you think that these parallel lines, me representing, in this case, the robot as the tech person, and you, the human, will ever cross?
No, and I think that that's the point. To me, they're not parallel lines. It's a line and a mirror that's getting very precise, very convincing, very producing very amazing reflections. But at the end of the day, just because it represents a human, it doesn't mean it will ever become one.
But we'll stay friends, right?
But we'll stay friends.
They'll stay friends as well.
Yeah. This is my favorite.
Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.